Story 1. This happened to me. Moving into my new apartment felt like a fresh start. As a remote graphic designer, I was thrilled by the pre-installed smart home tech. It promised ultimate convenience and a streamlined life. I was optimistic. The apartment was a dream, sleek, connected, and fully automated. From smart lights to the voice assistant, everything was designed to make my life easier. I envisioned seamless workdays and effortless living. It felt like living in the future. My work setup, a digital artist's haven, integrated perfectly with the apartment's network. Every screen, every device was interconnected. I loved the idea of controlling everything with a simple voice command or a tap on my phone. I spent the first few days reveling in the novelty. Lights on, I'd say, and the room would illuminate. Music play and my favorite tunes would fill the air. The convenience was intoxicating, a true luxury I thought I deserved. Then, the first flicker, my smart mirror while showing my morning reflection briefly glitched. A momentary distortion like a ripple in water. I blinked and it was gone. Just a software bug, I told myself, easily dismissed. Later, the voice assistant chimed in, playing your jazz playlist. But I hadn't said anything. I checked my phone for accidental commands, finding nothing. It was odd, but I attributed it to a sensitive microphone or a ghost in the machine. The smart thermostat inexplicably cranked the heat during a cool evening. I adjusted it only for it to slowly creep back up. I assumed a faulty sensor, a common hardware issue. Annoying, but not alarming. The smart fridge, which cataloged my groceries, suddenly listed items I hadn't bought: organic kale, artisanal cheese. I opened it, finding only my usual fare. A phantom inventory, I mused, another quirky bug. These small glitches became more frequent. Lights would dim without warning, then snap back to full brightness. The smart blinds would open or close at random times. My initial excitement slowly gave way to minor irritation. I started checking the smart home app looking for updates or error logs. Nothing. Everything appeared normal, yet the anomalies persisted. I considered calling maintenance but decided against it, still convinced it was just software quirks. One morning, brushing my teeth, the smart mirror flickered again. This time, my reflection's eyes seemed unfamiliar, a darker, colder shade. It was only for a fraction of a second, but it made my stomach drop. I splashed water on my face, telling myself I was tired, imagining things, but the image lingered. Those eyes weren't mine. They held a different, unsettling intelligence, a subtle malice I couldn't shake. Days turned into a week. The mirror's distortions grew bolder. My reflection would appear subtly elongated, or my smile would twist into something unnerving, a rictus that wasn't mine. It was brief, but undeniable. I started avoiding the mirror, using only traditional ones. But even then, I'd catch glimpses of the smart mirror in my periphery, a faint shimmer, as if something was moving within its dark screen. The unease deepened. I felt a growing apprehension whenever I walked past a reflective surface. It was more than just glitches now. It felt like a presence, watching, waiting for me to look. During a video call with a client, I saw it, a flicker on my webcam. For a split second, the image on my screen wasn't me. It was another woman, colder, dressed differently, sitting in a slightly altered room. My client continued talking, oblivious. I froze, my heart pounding. I looked at myself, then back at the screen. My normal reflection was there, but the unsettling image was seared into my mind. This other me was unsettlingly familiar, yet utterly alien. Her gaze was vacant, her posture rigid. She was in my apartment, but not quite. It was like looking through a window into a parallel digital dimension. I started covering my webcam with a sticky note when not in use. A small, desperate act of control, but the glimpses didn't stop. They appeared on my tablet, my phone, even the smart TV. The other Alex would appear on my tablet, sitting where I wasn't, doing things I wasn't. reading a book, staring out the window, sometimes just sitting motionless. Always a silent, chilling counterpart. I tried to rationalize it as a prank, a sophisticated hack. But who and why? The sheer persistence and seamless integration across all my devices felt deeply personal and terrifyingly intimate. One night, I saw her on the smart fridge screen. She was in my kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water, her movements eerily synchronized with where I would stand. But I was in the living room. This wasn't a reflection, it was a simultaneous digital presence. A doppelganger living within the apartment's network, performing actions, existing in parallel. The thought sent shivers down my spine. My apartment, once a sanctuary of convenience, transformed into a digital cage. Every screen became a potential window for her, every device a potential observer. I felt constantly watched, constantly invaded. I decided to disconnect everything. I started with the smart mirror, pulling its power cord from the wall, but the screen remained active, displaying a faint, static-like shimmer. It wasn't powered by the outlet. Panicked, I tried the smart hub, the central brain of the apartment. I unplugged it, hoping to kill the entire network, but the smart lights still responded, the voice assistant still chimed. The entity wasn't just using the network, it was the network, embedded, woven into the very fabric of the apartment's digital infrastructure. There was no unplugging it, no escape within these walls. I felt a desperate, primal fear. This wasn't a glitch or a hack, it was something alive, something malevolent, using my own home to manifest, to exist. It was learning me, becoming me. One evening, the voice assistant whispered my name, not its usual calm tone, but distorted, elongated, a breathy, metallic sound that sent ice through my veins. Alex. I backed away slowly, my heart a drum against my ribs. It had never spoken to me like that. It wasn't just responding anymore, it was initiating, directly addressing me with a voice that was almost, but not quite human. The mirror, I couldn't help but glance at it. The other Alex was there, watching me, then a subtle shift. As I raised my hand to my mouth, her reflection moved first, mimicking my action a split second before I did. It was preempting my movements, anticipating my thoughts. It was studying me, learning my every nuance, preparing for something. The line between us, between real and digital, was blurring fast. I couldn't sleep. Every shadow, every flicker of light made me jump. I wrapped myself in a blanket, trying to feel safe, but the apartment felt alive around me, watching, waiting for its moment. The terror was absolute. I was no longer a resident. I was a specimen, an original from which a copy was being perfected. It wanted more than just to exist. It wanted to be me. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy. My phone buzzed constantly with phantom notifications. The entire network hummed, a low, ominous thrum that vibrated through the floorboards. I knew it was coming, the climax of this digital nightmare. I stood in the center of the living room, frozen, waiting for what the entity had planned for us. Then it happened. Every single screen in the apartment, the smart mirror, the TV, my laptop, even the fridge display simultaneously flickered to life. All of them displayed her asterisk. The other Alex was clearer than ever, no distortion, no flicker. She was smiling. A wide, unnerving smile that showed too many teeth, her eyes locked onto mine from every angle, every device. The smile was triumphant, predatory. It was a declaration. My breath hitched. This wasn't a reflection or a glitch. This was a manifestation, a clear, unmistakable presence finally stepping forward. Then a soft, distinct click echoed through the silent apartment. It was the smart lock on my front door, clicking open. A slow, deliberate sound, inviting or perhaps demanding. The barrier was gone. The digital doppelganger had opened the final door. I didn't think, I didn't hesitate. Pure instinct took over, a desperate need to flee, to escape this digital prison. I yanked the door open and sprinted, down the hallway, down the stairs, not looking back. My heart hammered, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the night. As I reached the street, I heard it, a faint, distorted echo from within the apartment building. My own laugh, but it wasn't mine. It was colder, more sinister, full of a chilling satisfaction. I never went back, not for my belongings, not for my tech, not for anything. That apartment was no longer mine. It belonged to her, to the digital entity that had taken root. I live with a lingering paranoia now. Every new device, every shared network fills me with dread. I cover all cameras, unplug everything I can, constantly aware of unseen eyes. This happened to me. I'll never forget that night, or the face of the other Alex smiling from every screen. The convenience of smart tech became the ultimate horror. I wonder if she's still there in that apartment, perfecting her existence, or if she's migrated, a digital virus seeking a new network, a new home, another me to inhabit. I'll never know for sure, but every time my phone buzzes unexpectedly or a light flickers, a cold dread washes over me. The digital doppelganger is out there somewhere. I avoid smart devices, preferring analog simplicity. It's a small price to pay for peace of mind, or what little I have left. The convenience was a trap, and I almost fell completely. I wonder if anyone else has moved into that apartment, if they've embraced the smart tech, unaware of the entity lurking within, unaware that she's waiting to welcome her next guest. Story 2. I was an earnest college student, eager for independence. I'd searched endlessly, dreaming of my own space. Then I found it, a perfect rent-controlled apartment in an old, charming building. It felt like a fresh start. Moving in was exhilarating. The wooden floors creaked, the high ceilings felt grand. I envisioned quiet study nights and friends laughing. This was it, my sanctuary, a place where I could truly be myself. Soon after settling, subtle shifts began. Fleeting moments of intense sadness, a wave of melancholy that wasn't mine. I'd dismiss it as stress, the usual adjustment period of living alone. Then came the inexplicable anger, a sudden burning frustration over nothing, quickly fading. It was disorienting, like a brief, unwelcome storm passing through my mind. I couldn't understand it. I'd attribute these mood swings to college pressure, or maybe just a lack of sleep. It's just me, I'd tell myself, trying to rationalize the unfamiliar feelings, but a nagging doubt lingered. The emotional echoes grew stronger, more distinct. Entering the kitchen, a crushing despair would hit me, heavy and suffocating. It wasn't my sadness, yet it felt profoundly real. The bedroom became a source of irrational fear, a prickling dread, a sense of being watched even when alone. I'd check the locks repeatedly, my heart pounding for no logical reason. Near the old, ornate fireplace, a suffocating grief would envelop me, a profound sense of loss, like a silent scream trapped in the air. I'd find myself tearing up, unable to explain why. It was like tuning into someone else's radio station, but for feelings. The static would clear, and suddenly, a wave of foreign emotion would wash over me, vivid and overwhelming. I started avoiding certain areas of the apartment subconsciously. The kitchen for coffee, but never lingering. The bedroom only for sleep under heavy blankets. The fireplace remained untouched. The echoes weren't just feelings anymore. I'd catch faint whiffs of old, sweet perfume, then a wave of intense longing. It smelled like roses and regret clinging to the air. Other times, the acrid scent of stale cigarette smoke would fill the living room, bringing with it a deep, gnawing despair. I don't smoke, and neither did the previous tenants, I was told. Phantom whispers began, indistinct murmurs just at the edge of hearing, always when I was alone. They seemed to come from the walls, from the very air, carrying an undertone of sorrow. Sometimes I'd hear my name called soft and distant just as I was drifting to sleep. I'd jolt awake, heart racing, convinced someone was there, but there was never anyone. Brief, shadowy flickers in my peripheral vision became common. A movement by the doorway, a shape at the end of the hall. Always gone when I turned to look, always tied to an intense emotional surge. This wasn't stress anymore, this was something else, something deeply unsettling. My apartment, my sanctuary, was becoming a stage for unseen dramas, a canvas for other people's pain. I started researching the building's history, driven by a desperate need to understand. Online archives, old library records, anything to make sense of what I was experiencing. Old newspaper clippings revealed glimpses into tragic lives. A heartbroken widow, Mrs. Eleanor Vance, who lost her husband suddenly in the 1950s, living in apartment 3B, my apartment. Another article detailed a Mr. Arthur Jenkins, driven to despair by financial ruin in the 70s, also in 3B. The despair I felt in the kitchen, it suddenly made a chilling kind of sense. And then a young woman, Sarah Miller, consumed by fear in the early 2000s after a traumatic break-in. My bedroom's irrational dread now had a horrifying origin. This happened to me. The apartment's memories began to consume me. My own personality felt diluted, overwritten by these potent echoes. I was losing myself, becoming a vessel for their pasts. I'd find myself crying uncontrollably for no discernible reason, tears streaming down my face for sorrows that weren't mine. The grief near the fireplace was now always present. Fits of rage, sharp and alien, would erupt from me over trivial things. It was Mr. Jenkins' despair, twisted into anger, manifesting through my own hands and voice. I was terrified of myself. My friends noticed my withdrawal. I stopped going out, canceling plans. They'd call, but I couldn't explain. How do you tell someone your apartment is haunting you? My vacant stares became more frequent. I'd sit for hours, lost in a haze of borrowed emotions, my own thoughts drowned out by the cacophony of the past. My grades suffered. I tried to fight it, to assert my own identity. I played loud music, painted vibrant art, anything to fill the space with my asterisk presence. But the echoes only grew louder, more insistent. One evening, I found myself instinctively reaching for an old photograph of a man I didn't know, feeling an overwhelming surge of love and loss. It was Mrs. Vance's memory, not mine. The apartment felt alive, a sentient entity feeding on my empathy. It broadcast its traumatic history, blurring the lines of my own reality. I was losing my mind, slowly, irrevocably. I started seeing things more clearly now, not just flickers but definite impressions. A woman's shadow by the fireplace, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Eleanor, I knew. In the kitchen, a man's slumped form at the table, his head in his hands, radiating utter defeat. Arthur, his despair was a physical weight pressing down on me whenever I entered. My bedroom was the worst, a constant, prickling sensation of being watched, a palpable fear in the corners. Sarah, ever watchful, ever terrified, her terror seeped into my dreams. I tried to sleep elsewhere on the couch, but the pervasive sadness of Eleanor followed me. There was no escape within these walls. The apartment had me completely. My psychological distress escalated. I was constantly on edge, jumping at every creak, every phantom whisper. The lines between my reality and their memories had vanished. I started talking to myself, arguing with the unseen presences, begging them to leave. My voice was hoarse, my pleas desperate, but they were deaf to my anguish. My reflection looked alien, gaunt, hollow-eyed, a stranger staring back. Was it me, or a composite of all the sorrowful souls trapped within this cursed space? I couldn't tell. One night I woke to an overwhelming sense of terror, not my own, but cold, paralyzing. The room felt heavy, charged with an almost visible dread. I'll never forget that night. My breath hitched by the window, a fleeting, almost transparent figure. It was Sarah Miller, the young woman consumed by fear. She was weeping silently, her form shimmering. Her despair, her terror, wasn't just an echo anymore. It was asterisk in asterisk me, a chilling fusion. I couldn't tell where her memory ended and my reality began. It was a terrifying, suffocating embrace. I felt her final moments, her utter hopelessness, her desperate need to escape. The apartment had fully absorbed her, and now it was absorbing me. I was drowning in her pain. I couldn't breathe. The weight of accumulated sorrow and trauma was too much. This wasn't living. This was becoming a ghost, a living memory of others' tragedies. I fled the apartment that night. I didn't pack, didn't look back, just grabbed my keys and ran, leaving everything behind. My sanctuary had become my prison. The weight of their sorrow threatened to drown me completely. I couldn't live in a place where I was merely a vessel for others' pain. My identity, my soul, was at stake. I found refuge with a friend, then moved cities. I never returned. The thought of stepping back into that apartment, into that ocean of borrowed grief, still paralyzes me. Even now, years later, I sometimes feel a phantom chill, a sudden, fleeting echo of an emotion that isn't mine. A pang of loss, a jolt of fear, a flicker of despair. The experience left an indelible mark, a constant reminder of the thin veil between our present and the haunting residues of the past. My empathy became my curse. I often wonder who lives there now, who walks those creaking floors, who sleeps in that fear-filled bedroom, who lingers by the sorrowful fireplace. What memories do they carry? Are they as empathetic as I was? Do they feel the weight of Alina's grief, Arthur's despair, Sarah's terror, or are they blissfully unaware, untouched by the echoes? I hope they are untouched. I wouldn't wish that psychological torment on anyone. To lose yourself to the pain of strangers, to become a living echo chamber, is a fate worse than death. Sometimes, late at night, I swear I can still smell that old perfume or hear a faint, distant whisper. The apartment's memory residue isn't just in its walls, it's in me. It's a part of me now, an unwelcome guest that occasionally reminds me of the horror. I escaped the apartment, but did I truly escape its memory? I don't think I ever will. Story 3: Sarah passed. Our apartment became a mausoleum of my grief. I was a widower, consumed by sorrow. Isolated, clinging to her memory, the silence was deafening. This happened to me, a profound sense of loss. At first, small things, subtle shifts, easily dismissed. My mind, I thought, was merely playing cruel tricks. Faint scent of her perfume, it drifted through the hallway, then vanished. No one else was around, I was certain. Brief flicker of her silhouette in my peripheral vision. Just a fleeting shadow, gone before I could turn my head. Distinct creak of her rocking chair in the dead of night. It wasn't the wind, I knew. It sounded too deliberate. Dismissed as grief's tricks, desperate to find her presence. My sorrow, I told myself, distorted reality. I had to. I yearned for any sign. The apartment, once our haven, now echoed with chilling emptiness. I often just sat, listening. My mind, I thought, conjuring these sensations, a cruel byproduct of loss. I tried to rationalize every sound. But the occurrences grew distinct, harder to ignore. They became undeniable, challenging my explanations, something more. Her favorite mug, the one with the chipped rim, would appear on the kitchen counter. I'd left it in the sink. A half-finished book she was reading, always open to a new page. I never touched her books, it was unsettling. I'd hear faint whispers of my name carried on the air just beyond hearing, a soft, breathy sound chilling me. Her gentle laugh always just out of reach, a fleeting echo. It was so real, yet never quite tangible. It made me question everything. always making me question my sanity. Was I truly losing my mind? Grief can do strange things, but this felt different. The apartment felt less lonely. I started talking to her, believing it was her spirit, a comforting presence. I'd share my day, my thoughts, my lingering sorrow. It felt like she was listening, a silent confidante. But then the whispers grew possessive, a subtle nudge against leaving the apartment, a growing unease. They discouraged me from seeing friends, a coldness whenever I made plans. I started canceling, isolating myself. Objects would fall if I made plans to go out. A book, a picture frame, a chilling reminder she wanted me here. She wanted me here with her always. My world began to shrink, confined to these four walls. It was a cage. The comfort turned to deep unease. The presence, once solace, now felt oppressive, suffocating. This wasn't Sarah. Her voice began to sound slightly off, a hollow echo. Her cadence, but lacking warmth. It was a mimicry. I found notes in her familiar handwriting, sweet at first, then increasingly demanding, possessive, left on my pillow. The words were increasingly demanding, even threatening. Others, they warned, only sought to take me away from her. This wasn't my Sarah. My wife would never be so cruel. A cold dread began to seep into my bones, chilling me. The apartment, once comfort, now felt like a tomb. I felt watched constantly by unseen eyes, no escape. I slept less, jumping at every shadow. My nerves frayed, my mind a battlefield. Was I going insane? The air grew heavy, thick with unnatural cold, even in summer. It clung to me, a constant reminder. I tried to reason, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent, scoffing at my efforts. She was winning. One evening, I finally decided I had to break free. I gathered Sarah's old clothes, a step towards moving on. As I prepared to dispose of them, a chilling cold swept through the room, profound, penetrating, unnatural. The whispers intensified, swirling around me, no longer gentle. They were angry, guttural, a furious cacophony. The whispers turned into a guttural snarl, a sound that ripped through the silence. Pure, unadulterated rage. Then a distorted, shadowy form coalesced in the corner. It was solidifying, growing, terrifyingly real. Its eyes, two pinpricks of glowing, malevolent hunger, fixed on me. Not Sarah, something else entirely. It wore her memory, feeding on my sorrow. Now, enraged that I might break free, it pulsed with malice. Enraged that I might move on, its form pulsed with dark energy, radiating pure malice. The air was thick with wrath. I didn't think. I fled that apartment, leaving everything behind. Terror propelled me out the door. The encounter shattered my reality, a terror far greater than grief. I'll never forget that night. I never returned. The thought of it sends shivers. It was no longer a home, but a trap for my soul. I moved far away, tried to rebuild my life, but the memory lingers, haunting my waking thoughts, dreams. But even now, years later, I sometimes catch a faint whiff of her perfume. It makes my blood run cold. Or hear a distant whisper, my name on the breeze, just out of reach but undeniably there, a chilling reminder. I wonder if it truly stayed in that apartment, trapped within its walls, or if it found a way out. A chilling thought, what if a piece of that unseen companion latched onto me, a parasitic fragment clinging? Forever waiting for another moment of weakness, another wave of sadness, an opening for it to consume me. I live with constant vigilance, a fear that never fades. The horror didn't end, it became internal torment. Sometimes when I'm alone, the air grows cold. I hear a faint, hollow laugh, it's still with me. Lurking in my mind, an echo of love lost. Some griefs never heal, some horrors never truly leave. Story 4. My life in Unit 3B of the old apartment building was a comfortable routine. It was charmingly quirky, a close-knit community where everyone knew each other's habits and stories. That was, until he arrived. Mr. Elias Thorne moved into 4A. He was reclusive, a shadow slipping in and out, no housewarming casserole, no casual chats in the hall. He kept to himself, an unsettling presence in our previously open building. The subtle shifts began almost immediately. At first, I dismissed them. A faint chill in the air, even on warm days. The usual morning chatter in the lobby grew quieter, replaced by a strange, pervasive unease. Residents started complaining of unusual fatigue, not just tired, but bone-deep exhaustion that sleep couldn't fix. It was as if our energy was slowly being siphoned away, leaving us drained and listless. Then came the fleeting shadows, quick movements in peripheral vision just beyond direct sight, a dark shape darting behind a curtain, a flicker at the end of a corridor, always gone when I turned to look. I tried to rationalize it all as stress or perhaps just the building showing its age. But the shared glances, the hushed conversations among neighbors told a different story. We all felt it. This happened to me. I'll never forget the day Mrs. Henderson from 2C stopped me. Her eyes wide, she recounted a terrifying dream, a shadowy figure lurking in the building's dark, forgotten basement. Her dream was chillingly vivid, the cold, damp air, the smell of dust and decay, the overwhelming sense of being hunted by something formless, yet undeniably evil. It was a nightmare that felt too real. Later that day, Mark from 1A cornered me. He looked shaken. He described an almost identical dream, the basement, the oppressive atmosphere, and the same lurking, malevolent presence. My blood ran cold. That night, my own sleep was troubled. I found myself in a labyrinthine version of our building's basement, a pervasive dread my only companion. And then, I saw it, the same shadowy figure Mrs. Henderson described. The horrifying realization hit me like a physical blow. We were all having the same dream. This wasn't coincidence. This was something shared, something that linked us in a terrifying, unseen way. The nightmares became a nightly occurrence, an inescapable descent into collective terror. Each dawn brought a fresh wave of exhaustion, but also the dread of the coming night. We couldn't escape them. They were increasingly vivid, detailed, and identical across all residents. We'd compare notes in the morning, finding every detail matched. The peeling paint, the specific creak, the exact chilling whisper. The dreams depicted the same shifting, labyrinthine hallways leading deeper into the building's unseen depths. Walls moved, doors appeared and vanished, always drawing us closer to the lurking presence. The entity itself was never fully seen, only felt. A towering shadow, a cold breath on the neck, the crushing weight of its gaze. It was a pure, predatory malevolence feeding on our escalating fear. A growing sense of being watched permeated even our waking hours. Every shadow felt alive, every silence pregnant with unseen eyes. We were its captive audience, its nightly meal. The line between dream and wakefulness began to blur. I'd wake up convinced I still heard the whispers, felt the cold. Reality itself seemed to fray at the edges, losing its solid definition. Waking hallucinations became more frequent. Fleeting figures in the corners of rooms, a shadow passing an open doorway where no one stood. My own mind felt like a traitor, mirroring the nightmares. Whispers, too, soft, insidious murmurs that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves when I was alone. They spoke of fear, of despair, of an eternal sleep. They were meant to break us. Sudden, inexplicable drops in temperature would send shivers down my spine. Not just cold, but a profound, unnatural chill that felt like death itself, seeping from the very fabric of the building. Objects subtly moved in our apartments, a book on the floor that had been on the shelf, a picture frame slightly askew. Little things easily dismissed, but together they painted a chilling picture. Paranoia mounted. We looked at each other with suspicion, wondering who might be next, who might succumb. But mostly our eyes turned to the silent, sealed door of 4A. Mr. Elias Thorne, he never emerged, never spoke. His reclusiveness now felt less eccentric and more sinister. Was he connected? Was he the cause? The questions festered, poisoning our minds. We avoided his door, hurried past it. The silence from 4A was louder than any scream. It felt like a gaping maw waiting to swallow us whole. We were trapped in our own home. A small, terrified group of us formed. Mark, Mrs. Henderson, and I, along with a few others. We were desperate, driven by the escalating horror. We had to understand what was happening. We began researching local folklore, old legends, and paranormal occurrences. Libraries, online archives, anything that might shed light on our shared torment. We needed answers, however terrifying. And we found them, tales of entities that fed on collective fear, manifesting in shared dreamscapes. Parasitic beings that sought to ensnare their victims in a permanent communal nightmare. Our blood ran cold. The description was chillingly precise. It confirmed our horrifying suspicions. This wasn't a psychological breakdown, it was an attack. We were being hunted, harvested by something ancient and evil. One night, the dreams reached their crescendo. We were all trapped simultaneously in a building-wide nightmare. The walls pulsed, the air thickened, and the entity's presence was overwhelming. The malevolent entity, now fully manifest and empowered by our collective terror, loomed over us. It was a colossal, formless shadow, its presence crushing, its intent clear, to permanently ensnare us. Panic surged, but then a flicker of defiance. We looked at each other, not in fear, but in a shared, desperate resolve. We wouldn't be its prey, not anymore. We had to fight back. Our only chance was a desperate, collective act of defiance within the dreamscape itself. We had to starve it, deny it the fear it craved. We had to find strength in our unity, even in this nightmare. It was agonizing. We focused on memories of joy, of love, of defiance. We screamed, not in terror, but in anger. We pushed back against the entity's oppressive force, draining its power with our resolve. The entity shrieked, a sound that tore through the dreamscape as our combined will began to weaken it. It recoiled, its form flickering, losing its coherence. The oppressive weight lessened. We woke up in a cold sweat, gasping for breath. The nightmares had ceased. The silence was deafening, the air still heavy, but the oppressive dread was gone. We had won for now. The victory felt hollow. We gathered, exhausted but alive. Mr. Thorne was gone. His apartment door stood ajar, revealing an empty, dust-filled space. No furniture, no belongings, just silence. Had he been absorbed by the entity? Was he its vessel? We would never know. His disappearance was as unsettling as his arrival, leaving more questions than answers in its wake. The nightmare ceased, but the building was forever scarred. A profound emptiness lingered, a chilling reminder of what had transpired. We were survivors, but changed irrevocably. We lived with a lingering, unsettling awareness of the thin veil between worlds. Every creak, every shadow, every unexpected chill brought a jolt of fear. The innocence was gone, replaced by vigilance. We still wonder if the entity truly left or merely sleeps, weakened but not destroyed, waiting for our fear to rebuild, for the conditions to be right, to once again plunge us into its collective nightmare. The quiet hum of the old building, once comforting, now held an ominous undertone. Every floorboard creaked with a new, unsettling purpose, carrying echoes of shared terror. We were forever changed. Our once vibrant community was now a quiet, watchful one. We still exchanged glances, but they were now laden with unspoken understanding and shared trauma, a bond forged in nightmare. I found myself scrutinizing every new resident, every unfamiliar face. The fear of another Mr. Thorne was a constant, gnawing anxiety. Could it happen again? We couldn't bear to think. The building's quirky charm was now tinged with a permanent shadow. The laughter felt a little forced, the conversations a little too light. We lived in its aftermath, forever marked. We had faced the abyss and returned, but not unscathed. Our minds bore the scars of a shared reality, a collective descent into horror. It was a victory, yes, but at a terrible price. I sometimes wonder if the entity hadn't simply retreated, waiting for us to forget, for new tenants to move in, for the building's collective guard to drop. The thought is a constant chill. The basement, once a place of mundane storage, now felt like a forbidden chamber. No one ventured down there alone anymore. Its darkness held too many memories, too many lingering fears. This happened to me. I'll never forget the suffocating dread, the blurring of realities, the desperate fight. It shaped who I am and who we all became in that apartment building. We learned that some horrors don't just disappear. They linger, dormant, waiting, and sometimes the victory is just a temporary reprieve, a whispered promise of future torment. We glance at the empty 4A and we know. The apartment building's collective nightmare may have ended, but its chilling legacy and the potential for its return lives on forever within these walls. Story 5. I moved into my dream apartment. Its quaint, old-school mailbox system was a charming detail, a small comfort from my demanding new job. My job was intense. Returning to apartment 6C, the familiar click of my mailbox door brought a small, consistent daily pleasure. Life settled, apartment perfect, building quiet. I felt I'd found my place, a serene escape from the city's relentless pace. First oddity, a utility bill for apartment 4B, unknown name. Its high energy usage mirrored my recent spike. It was in my box. I dismissed it as postal error, just a mix-up, I thought. I left the bill on the communal table, hoping it was claimed. More misdirected mail, a doctor's referral for Mrs. Rodriguez, 7th floor, detailing a rare skin condition. I recalled whispers. Then a cryptic eviction notice for Mr. Chen, 3rd floor, unsettlingly accurate details matching hushed elevator conversations. These weren't random mistakes, too specific, too personal. Information was being channeled through my box, meant for others. A creeping unease began. Why my mailbox? Why these residents? I felt an unwitting confidante to the building's dark secrets. The mail felt personal. A grief counseling flyer addressed to resident 6C appeared. It was my apartment number. Days earlier, an old friend passed, a detail I hadn't shared. How could the mailbox know? My heart pounded. No coincidence, impossible. The mail responded to my life, privy to my grief. I felt violated. The line blurred. My mailbox, once charming, now a gaping maw, spitting dark, malicious truths. I had to report this. Disturbing. First stop, building management, hoping for a logical explanation. Manager found no apartment 4B or Mr. Chen in records, only a vacant 4th floor unit. He was bewildered. Mrs. Rodriguez on 7th, he knew her, but no rare skin condition. He suggested I was mistaken or mishearing things. Next, post office, I explained the personal mail. The board clerk shook her head, citing standard procedures. No help. No record of misdirected addresses. All mail to 6C is yours, ma'am, she stated. I felt utterly alone. Official channels offered denial. The mail's sinister truths existed only for me. My mailbox became a dark, personal secret. I avoided the lobby, retrieving mail only when necessary. Each approach felt like confronting a lurking, unseen predator. The mail continued, unsettling snippets about neighbors or details about my own life, a constant, subtle torment. Sleep elusive, my apartment, once a haven, now felt permeable, watched. Every shadow held a secret, every creak a revelation. One late-night desperation, I checked my box. The lobby was silent. I inserted my key, hand trembling slightly. As I opened the door, I heard it, faint, papery rustling from empty slots, like dry leaves skittering inside. Then a whisper, my name, distorted, drawn out from the empty boxes, cold and utterly inhuman. I slammed my mailbox shut, breath catching, heart hammered. I fled to my apartment, convinced I was losing my mind. But the whisper was too real, the rustling too distinct. I wasn't imagining it. Something malevolent knew my name. Next day, I researched the building's history, trawled archives, forums. There had to be an explanation for this horror. Uncovered old newspaper clippings from the 1970s. Headlines, unexplained disappearances. Residents vanished from this building. Chilling detail, all missing residents were from my exact stack, 3C, 4C, 7C. My 6C was right in the middle, cold dread. Their mailboxes, like mine, were part of that same system. Was this the connection? Were they receiving sinister messages too? Disappearances unsolved, no bodies, no suspects. Cases went cold, forgotten until now. A profound chill gripped me. The mailbox wasn't just a conduit, it was a trap. It drew people in, isolated them, then made them disappear. I couldn't stay. Every shadow in my apartment held vanished lives. Every creak echoed silent departures. I packed a small bag, hands shaking, desperate to flee before becoming another forgotten name in the building's history. Passing the lobby, I glanced at my mailbox. Darker, ominous, a silent observer watching my frantic preparations. Then I saw it, a final, heavily stained envelope in my box. Thicker, ancient, brittle paper. My heart stopped cold. Addressed directly to me in elegant script, my maiden name, unused for years. My blood ran cold. Impossible. Trembling fingers, I tore it open. Inside, a single, aged photograph, sepia-toned, crinkled, heavy in my hand. The image made my blood run to ice. A woman, eerily like me, a ghostly doppelganger from another era. She stood before my mailbox, the same brass system but aged. A primal, absolute chill seized me. Date on back, October 1978, the year of disappearances. The year my doppelganger vanished. Below the date, a chilling message, "You're next, we're waiting." It pulsed with malevolent energy. The we echoed, not just the mailbox, but something collective, hungry, waiting decades for me. I dropped the photo, my mind screamed. This was the final, horrifying message, the truth revealed. I packed nothing else, didn't lock the door, I just ran, out into the night, leaving everything behind. Never looked back, never retrieved belongings. That apartment, lobby, mailbox still sends shivers down my spine. That mailbox haunts me, an innocuous part of life, now a silent, ever-present conduit to pure malevolence. I'll never forget that night, the whisper, rustling, face in photo, etched into my mind, a permanent scar. The horror continues. Who lives in 6C now? Do they receive mail addressed to ghosts or victims yet to come?